The restaurant review appeared on Yelp at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and Zachary Thompson read it exactly 3 minutes after it posted because he couldn't sleep and was obsessively checking his phone like he'd done every night for the past 6 months since opening his dream restaurant. "I've eaten in restaurants across 3 continents," the review began, "and I can confidently say that the roasted duck at Ember Oak is perfection. But what truly made my evening unforgettable wasn't just the food. It was the way every detail spoke to someone's genuine passion. From the handwritten daily menu to the way the candlelight caught the copper pots hanging behind the bar, everything felt intentional. Whoever created this place didn't just want to feed people. They wanted to give them a memory. 5 stars doesn't feel like enough. Thank you for reminding me that art and food can be the same thing." Zach read it 17 times before sunrise. The review was signed by Katherine Zimmerman, and those 200 words hit him harder than any food critic's column or industry award ever could. She understood. A complete stranger had walked into his restaurant and understood exactly what he'd been trying to create. He screenshot the review and sent it to his business partner and head chef Marcus with the message, "This is why we're doing this." Marcus replied at 6 a.m., "That's beautiful, man. But also we're still 20,000 in the red this month. Just saying." Zach knew the financial reality. He'd poured his entire inheritance from his grandfather, every penny of the $5 million, into Ember Oak. Most people assumed he was just another rich kid playing restaurant owner, but the truth was messier than that. He'd spent 8 years working his way up from dishwasher to sous chef in kitchens across New York and San Francisco, sleeping on couches, living on staff meals. When his grandfather died and left him the money, Zach finally had the chance to build something that mattered. 6 months in, and the restaurant was critically acclaimed but financially struggling. The rent in downtown Portland was crushing them. They needed consistent crowds, not just weekend reservations. But that review made him remember why he'd risked everything. On a whim, Zach printed out the review on expensive cardstock paper. Then he drove to a frame shop and had it mounted in a simple black frame. When he got to the restaurant that afternoon, he hung it on the kitchen wall, right where he could see it from his station at the pass. "You're hanging up a Yelp review?" Marcus asked, amused. "In our kitchen." "This one deserves it," Zach said. The line cooks gathered around to read it, and he watched their faces soften. They'd all been working brutal hours for less money than they deserved, believing in Zach's vision even when the dining room was half empty on weeknights. "That's actually really nice," said Pillar, their youngest cook. "Maybe we should write back, thank her." Zach had already thought about it. He typed and deleted 15 different responses to the review. Everything sounded either too formal or too desperate. Finally, he settled on, "Thank you for seeing what we're trying to do. It means more than you know. The duck will be waiting whenever you want to come back." Katherine Zimmerman replied 2 hours later, "I'll be there Friday. Save me a seat at the bar." Zach's heart did something stupid in his chest. He typed back, "It's already saved." Friday arrived with torrential rain, the kind of October downpour that made Portland feel like it was melting into the Willamette River. Zach changed his shirt 3 times before service, which was ridiculous because he'd be wearing a chef's coat all night anyway. Marcus noticed and gave him endless grief about it. "You're nervous about a customer," Marcus said, grinning. "A customer you've never met." "I'm not nervous. I just want everything to be perfect." "You want everything to be perfect every night. Tonight you're vibrating." Zach forced himself to focus on prep work. They had a full book of reservations, which was good news for once. He broke down his station, checked every mise en place container twice, tasted every sauce. The kitchen hummed with the familiar pre-service energy, that combination of tension and excitement that he'd always loved. At 6:30 p.m., the front-of-house manager Claire poked her head into the kitchen. "There's a woman at the bar asking for you. Says her name is Katherine." Zach wiped his hands on his apron and walked out to the dining room, his heart pounding stupidly hard. The bar stretched along the left side of the restaurant, all reclaimed wood and dim Edison bulbs. And there, sitting on the corner stool exactly where he'd told Claire to save a seat, was Katherine Zimmerman. She was beautiful in an understated way that made his breath catch. Dark hair pulled back in a loose bun, gray eyes that seemed to take in everything, a navy blue dress that was simple but elegant. She was probably close to his age, maybe 30 or 31. When she saw him, she smiled, and it was warm and a little nervous. "You must be the genius behind the duck," she said, "Zach Thompson." He extended his hand and she shook it. Her grip was firm. "And you're the person who wrote the review that's now hanging in my kitchen." Her eyes widened. "You're joking. Come see." He led her back to the kitchen, which was controlled chaos as the first tickets started coming in. But he walked her past the line to the far wall, and there it was, her review in its black frame. Katherine stared at it, and he watched her face cycle through surprise, embarrassment, and then something softer. "You actually framed it. You understood what I was trying to do," Zach said simply. "That doesn't happen often." "I felt it the second I walked in," she said. "I've been working in food journalism for 7 years, and you learn to spot the difference between someone doing it for ego and someone doing it for love. This place is love. You're a food writer, freelance. I mostly write for smaller publications. Nothing fancy." She touched the frame gently. "But I've eaten in a lot of restaurants. Yours is special." Behind them, Marcus called out, "Chef, we need you on the pass." Zach wanted to keep talking to her, but the kitchen was ramping up. "I have to get back to work, but please order anything you want. It's on the house." "You don't have to do that." "I want to." Katherine smiled at him, and it felt like sunlight. "Then I'll let you get back to creating magic. But Zach, thank you for letting me see where it happens." He cooked that night with a focus and joy he hadn't felt in months. Every plate that went out felt important. He kept glancing through the kitchen window to the bar, where Katherine sat talking with Claire and the bartender, occasionally scribbling in a small notebook. She ordered the duck again, and he made sure it was perfect. When she took her first bite, he watched her close her eyes and smile, and something shifted in his chest. The service was smooth and busy, exactly what they needed. By the time the last table had been served and the kitchen was breaking down their stations, Zach felt exhausted and electric at the same time. He cleaned himself up and went back out to the dining room. Katherine was still at the bar, nursing a glass of red wine. Most of the restaurant had cleared out. "You're still here," he said. "I was hoping you'd have time to talk," she said. "But if you're too tired, I understand. I know how brutal those shifts are. You've worked in kitchens, briefly." "I was a line cook for about 6 months before I realized I was better at writing about food than making it." She gestured to the empty stool next to her. "Join me." Zach sat down, and the bartender Raphael automatically poured him a bourbon neat. "You should know that review is going to live on that wall forever," Zach said. "Even if we go out of business and they turn this place into a parking lot, I'm taking that frame with me." Katherine laughed. "That's a lot of pressure." "What if I leave a bad review somewhere else and ruin my credibility?" "Impossible. You have good taste. You liked my duck." "Your duck is phenomenal." The orange gastrique was perfectly balanced, and the way the skin shattered. She made a chef's kiss gesture. "Poetry." They talked for 2 hours. The conversation flowed like they'd known each other for years instead of hours. She told him about growing up in Seattle, about her parents who ran a small bookstore and instilled in her a love of stories. She'd gone to journalism school thinking she'd write about politics, but discovered her real passion was writing about the people who make food, the stories behind restaurants and recipes. Zach told her about learning to cook from his grandmother, about the years grinding it out in other people's kitchens, about the terror and exhilaration of opening Ember and Oak. He didn't mention the money yet, the fact that he'd inherited millions. People's attitudes always changed when they learned about that, and he wanted her to see him as just a chef, just a guy trying to make something meaningful. "Why Portland?" she asked. "You could have opened in New York or San Francisco, somewhere with more food media attention." "Because Portland feels real," he said. "The food scene here is about community, not competition, and I needed to be somewhere that wasn't trying to be somewhere else. You know," Katherine nodded. "I moved here 3 years ago for the same reason. Seattle was getting too expensive, too tech-focused. I needed a place where I could breathe and think and write." "Are you working on anything now?" "Actually, yes." She looked a little shy suddenly. "I'm writing a book. It's about small restaurants that are trying to survive in the age of food delivery apps and Instagram culture. Places that are doing it for the right reasons, like yours. Would you want to feature Ember and Oak? I was hoping you'd let me, but I didn't want to ask on the first night." It felt too transactional. "Ask me anything," Zach said. "I'm an open book." They exchanged numbers before she left that night, and Zach walked her to her car in the rain. She drove an old Subaru that had seen better days, and something about that made him like her even more. She was real. She wasn't impressed by polish or pretense. "Thank you for tonight," she said through her rolled-down window, "for the food and the conversation and for letting me into your world a little bit." "Come back anytime," Zach said. "The seat at the bar is permanently yours." She drove away, and he stood in the rain watching her taillights disappear, feeling like something significant had just begun. The next morning, Katherine texted him. "Still thinking about that duck, and the conversation. Coffee sometime this week." They met on Monday at a small cafe near Katherine's apartment in the Hawthorne district. She showed up in jeans and a sweater, her hair down this time, falling past her shoulders. They sat in the corner by the window and talked for 3 hours, coffee going cold in their cups. Zach learned that she loved mystery novels and hiking and terrible reality TV that she watched ironically but also sincerely. She had a younger brother who was a high school teacher in Spokane, and she called her parents every Sunday without fail. She was allergic to shellfish and deathly afraid of spiders, and when she was nervous, she twisted a ring on her right hand, a silver band she'd inherited from her grandmother. She learned that he played guitar badly but enthusiastically, that he'd wanted to be a professional baseball player until he blew out his shoulder at 19, that he couldn't watch cooking competition shows because they stressed him out too much. His parents had divorced when he was 12, and he was closer to his mom, who taught elementary school in San Diego. His grandfather, the one who'd left him the money, had been a contractor who'd built a successful construction business from nothing. "He taught me that anything worth doing is worth doing right," Zach said. "He never cut corners, never compromised on quality, even when it cost him jobs or money." "Sounds like you inherited more than money from him," Katherine said softly. That was the moment Zach realized he needed to tell her the truth. "About that, the money, I should probably be honest with you about something." Katherine's expression shifted slightly, cautious. "Okay, my grandfather left me $5 million. I know that sounds insane. It was insane. But I put every penny into the restaurant. I'm not some trust fund kid playing chef. But I also had an advantage that most people don't get, and I want you to know that because I don't want there to be secrets between us." He watched her process this information. She was quiet for a long moment, twisting that ring on her finger. "Thank you for telling me," she finally said. "Can I ask you something honestly? Anything? Are you worried that's all people see when they look at you, the money?" "Yes," Zach admitted, "because it's happened before. I dated someone in San Francisco who seemed perfect until she found out about the inheritance. Then suddenly everything changed. She started treating me differently, expecting things. It fell apart pretty fast." "That's awful," Katherine said. "For what it's worth, the review I wrote was about the food and the atmosphere. I didn't know anything about you or your background. I just knew that someone had poured their heart into that place. The money doesn't change what you created." "That means a lot," Zach said. "More than you know." She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. The touch was brief but intentional, and it sent electricity up his arm. "I'm glad you told me. But for the record, what I like about you has nothing to do with money. It's about the way you talk about food like it matters, and the way you hung my review in your kitchen like it was a Michelin star." He turned his hand over and caught hers before she could pull away completely. "Can I take you to dinner? Somewhere that's not my restaurant, so I can actually sit with you the whole time." "I'd really like that," Katherine said, and her smile was bright and real and made him feel like he'd won something important. Their first official date was on Wednesday night. Zach made reservations at a Thai restaurant on the east side that he'd been wanting to try. He picked Katherine up from her apartment, which was a cozy one-bedroom filled with books and plants and framed prints of vintage food advertisements. She introduced him to her cat, a massive orange tabby named Brisket. "You named your cat after a cut of meat?" Zach asked, laughing. "I named him after my favorite cut of meat," Katherine corrected. "When I adopted him, he was this chubby little thing and it just fit. Plus, I figured it would be a good conversation starter." It worked. Dinner was easy and comfortable. They shared pad thai and green curry and argued playfully about whether cilantro was a gift or a curse. Katherine was firmly pro-cilantro. Zach was ambivalent but leaning positive. They laughed until their sides hurt, and when Zach drove her home, he walked her to her door like it was 1955. "I had a really great time tonight," Katherine said, keys in hand but not moving to unlock the door yet. "Me too." Zach stepped a little closer. "Can I see you again? Soon? How about Friday? I could come by the restaurant after service, and we could get late-night food somewhere." "Perfect." They stood there in the glow of her porch light, and the moment stretched between them, full of possibility. Katherine leaned up and kissed his cheek, quick and soft, and then she was inside before he could react. Zach drove home with a stupid grin on his face that didn't fade for days. Friday became their routine. Katherine would come to Ember and Oak late in the evening, sitting at the bar and working on her laptop, or chatting with the staff while Zach finished service. Then they'd leave together, hunting down food trucks or late-night diners, talking about everything and nothing. 3 weeks into whatever they were building, Marcus pulled Zach aside during prep. "So, are you going to officially ask Katherine to be your girlfriend, or are you just going to keep making moon eyes at her forever?" "I'm not making moon eyes." "Chef, you literally stopped mid-sentence yesterday to watch her walk through the dining room. You're gone." Zach couldn't argue. He was gone. Katherine had worked her way into his thoughts, his routines, his life. He caught himself texting her between services, wanting to share small moments. He cooked differently when he knew she'd be coming by, putting extra care into every dish. She'd started interviewing him officially for her book, but the interviews always devolved into regular conversations, the kind where you lose track of time. He decided to do something big. Not flashy, but meaningful. On a Sunday, his only day off, Zach invited Katherine to go to the coast with him. They drove 2 hours to Cannon Beach, bundled in jackets against the November wind. The beach was mostly empty, just a few hardy locals and their dogs. The famous Haystack Rock rose from the surf, massive and ancient. They walked along the water's edge, shoes in hand, letting the cold Pacific foam over their feet. Katherine talked about her book, how it was coming together, but she was terrified no publisher would want it. Zach listened and told her the truth, that her writing was beautiful and important, and anyone who didn't see that was an idiot. "You have to say that," Katherine said. "You like me." "I do like you," Zach agreed. "A lot, but I also know good work when I see it, and yours is exceptional." They found a seafood shack and ate fish and chips sitting on a bench overlooking the ocean. The food was perfect in that way that simple food at the beach always is, hot and salty and satisfying. Katherine got tartar sauce on her nose, and Zach reached over to wipe it off without thinking, the gesture intimate and natural. "I want to ask you something," Zach said, suddenly nervous. "And you can say no, obviously, but I need to just say it because I'm not good at uncertainty." Katherine set down her food, giving him her full attention. "Okay. Will you be my girlfriend, officially? I know that sounds middle school, but I need you to know that this isn't casual for me. You're not casual for me. You're the person I want to talk to at the end of every day. You're the reason I hung that review in my kitchen, because you saw me, really saw what I was trying to do, and that's the kind of person I want in my life. So, yes, will you be my girlfriend?" Katherine's eyes were shining. She set her fish and chips aside completely and took both of his hands in hers. "Yes. Obviously, yes. I've been your girlfriend in my head for 2 weeks now. I just didn't know if we were there yet." "We're there," Zach said, and then he kissed her for the first time, tasting salt air and tartar sauce and joy. The kiss was everything a first kiss should be. Soft and then deeper, tentative and then sure. When they finally pulled apart, they were both smiling like fools. "Should we tell people?" Katherine asked. "Or keep it quiet for a while?" "Tell everyone," Zach said immediately. "I want the whole world to know." They drove back to Portland as the sun set, Katherine's hand in his on the center console. They stopped at her apartment, and this time when he walked her to the door, she invited him inside. They sat on her couch with brisket between them, drinking tea and talking until midnight. Zach didn't push for more, and Katherine didn't offer, and somehow that made it even better. They were building something real, something that didn't need to be rushed. When Zach finally left, he felt lighter than he had in years. The next morning, he sent a photo of the framed review to Katherine with the caption, "The review that started everything." She replied, "Best thing I ever wrote." The restaurant started picking up. Whether it was word of mouth or Katherine mentioning it in a couple of her freelance articles or just the universe aligning, Ember and Oak began filling up consistently. They had wait times on weekends. The financial pressure eased slightly, though they were still a long way from comfortable. Zach invited Katherine to a staff meal one evening before service. The whole team gathered around the family-style table in the back of the kitchen, sharing food and stories. Katherine fit in seamlessly, laughing at Marcus's jokes and asking Pillar about her plans to open her own place someday. Zach watched her with his team and felt that sensation again, like something clicking into place. After everyone had eaten and started their prep, Marcus cornered him by the walk-in. "I like her, man. She's good for you. You seem happy." "I am happy," Zach said. "Happier than I've been in a long time. Good, you deserve it. Just don't forget about the rest of us when you're off being in love." "Never," Zach promised. As fall turned to winter, Zach and Katherine fell into a rhythm. She came to the restaurant several times a week. He learned her order by heart. The duck when she wanted to feel fancy. The roasted chicken when she wanted comfort. the mushroom risotto when she'd had a long day. They celebrated small victories together, like when she sold an essay to a major food magazine, or when Ember and Oak got a glowing mention in Portland Monthly. They also navigated their first real conflict. It happened in early December, when Katherine told Zach she'd been offered a 3-week assignment in New York, profiling restaurants in Brooklyn for a national publication. It was a huge opportunity, the kind that could raise her profile significantly. "That's amazing," Zach said, but his voice was tight. "You should definitely do it." They were in his apartment, a loft space above a bookstore downtown. He'd cooked dinner for them, his way of decompressing after a brutal Saturday service. "You don't sound excited," Katherine said carefully. "I am excited for you. I'm just going to miss you. 3 weeks is a long time. I know, I'm going to miss you too." She moved closer to him on the couch. "But this could be really good for my career. The exposure alone could help sell the book. I know that, and I want you to go." "I'm just being selfish and weird about it." Katherine took his face in her hands. "You're allowed to be sad about me leaving. That's not selfish. But I need you to trust that 3 weeks won't change anything between us." "I do trust you," Zach said. "I'm sorry. I'm not good at this." "The last relationship I had fell apart when we were long distance, and I think I'm projecting." "I'm not her," Katherine said firmly. "And 3 weeks isn't long distance. It's temporary. I'll call you every day. We'll video chat. And when I get back, we'll have so much to talk about." Zach pulled her into his arms. "You're right. I'm being ridiculous. Go to New York. Write amazing things. Just come back to me." "Always," Katherine promised. The 3 weeks she was gone were harder than Zach wanted to admit. He threw himself into the restaurant, working longer hours, developing new dishes for the winter menu. Katherine called him every night, and they'd talk for an hour or more, her telling him about the restaurants she'd visited, him describing the chaos of the kitchen. He sent her flowers to her hotel. She sent him a postcard with a terrible pun about missing his cooking. When she finally came back 2 days before Christmas, Zach picked her up from the airport with flowers and the biggest smile. Katherine dropped her bags and ran to him, and he lifted her off her feet, spinning her around in the middle of the arrivals terminal. "I missed you so much," she said into his neck. "Missed you more," he said. "Never leave again. Deal." They spent Christmas together. Zach closed the restaurant for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, the first time he'd fully closed since opening. Katherine invited him to her parents' house in Seattle, and he said yes, even though meeting parents felt huge and terrifying. Her parents, Robert and Deanna Zimmerman, were warm and welcoming. Her father ran the bookstore, a cozy independent shop in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. Her mother was a retired librarian who still volunteered at the local branch. They clearly adored their daughter, and they treated Zach with genuine interest and kindness. "Katherine has told us a lot about you," Deanna said over Christmas dinner. "She says you're an exceptional chef." "I do my best," Zach said, suddenly self-conscious. "He's being modest," Katherine jumped in. "His restaurant is the best in Portland, maybe the best I've been to anywhere." "She wrote a review that made me frame it and hang it in my kitchen," Zach said. "So I might be a little biased, but I think she's a pretty exceptional writer." Robert smiled. "We raised her to care about words. Sounds like you care about food the same way." "I try to," Zach said. "My grandfather taught me that whatever you do, it should mean something. It should make people's lives a little better, even if it's just for one meal." He felt Katherine's hand find his under the table, squeezing gently. After dinner, Katherine showed him the bookstore, closed for the holiday but still magical with its floor-to-ceiling shelves and the smell of paper and binding glue. They sat in the reading nook, surrounded by books, and Katherine kissed him like she'd been waiting all day to do it. "Thank you for coming here," she said. "For meeting them. I know it's a big step. I wanted to meet the people who made you, Zach said, and I think they're great. Your dad has your sense of humor and your mom has your warmth. They loved you. My mom texted me in the kitchen to tell me she approves. What did your dad say? He said, and I quote, "That's a good man. Don't let him get away." Zach grinned. I like your dad. He's not wrong, though, Katherine said softly. You are a good man, Zach Thompson, the best I've ever known. They drove back to Portland on Christmas Day, and Zach felt something settle in his chest. This was real. This was lasting. Whatever they were building, it had a foundation that could weather distance and stress and meeting the parents. The restaurant had its first truly profitable month in January. The winter menu was a hit, and word of mouth had reached a critical mass. They weren't making huge money, but they were finally sustainable. Zach gave everyone on the team raises, small but meaningful. Marcus hugged him in the walk-in, something he'd never done before. We're going to make it, Marcus said. We're actually going to make it. We are, Zach agreed, and for the first time since opening, he believed it completely. Katherine finished her book in February. She sent the manuscript to her agent, a woman in New York who'd been cautiously supportive but non-committal. Then came the hardest part, waiting. Zach did his best to distract her. He took her on hikes in the Columbia River Gorge, cooked elaborate meals in his apartment, planned movie marathons of her favorite films. But he could see the anxiety in the way she checked her phone constantly, the way she went quiet sometimes in the middle of conversations. What if no one wants it? She asked one night, curled up against him on his couch. What if I spent 2 years writing something that's just going to sit in a drawer forever? That won't happen, Zach said with certainty. Your book is brilliant. You tell stories that matter. Someone will see that. You have to say that because you're my boyfriend. I say it because it's true. And I'm also your boyfriend, so I get to be both supportive and honest. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon. Katherine was at Zach's place, working on a freelance piece at his dining table while he prepped for evening service. Her phone rang, and he watched her face go pale when she saw the caller ID. It's my agent, she mouthed to him. Answer it, he whispered. He stood in the kitchen, holding his breath, watching Katherine's face as she listened. Her expression was unreadable at first, and then her eyes went wide. She covered her mouth with her hand. Are you serious? She said into the phone. Yes. Yes, of course. Oh my God, thank you so much. When she hung up, she just stared at Zach for a moment, and then she burst into tears. Zach rushed over, pulling her into his arms. What happened? Are you okay? I sold it, Katherine said through the tears, laughing and crying at the same time. A publisher wants my book. They're offering a real advance, Zach. Someone wants to publish my book. Of course they do, Zach said, lifting her off the ground and spinning her around. Of course they do, because you're talented and brilliant and you wrote something beautiful. They celebrated that night after service. Zach made a special meal just for the two of them at the restaurant after everyone else had left. He cooked every one of her favorite dishes, courses and courses of food that told her without words how proud he was, how much he believed in her. This is too much, Katherine said, looking at the spread on the bar. Nothing is too much for you today, Zach said. You're going to be a published author. That's huge. You made this possible, she said. Meeting you, being in your world, it reminded me why I love food writing, why the stories matter. That review I wrote about your restaurant, it was the first thing I wrote that felt completely true. You gave me that. You gave me something too, Zach said. You saw what I was trying to create and you validated it. You made me believe this place mattered. We gave each other something, Katherine. That's what this is. She kissed him then, deep and full of promise and gratitude and love, though neither of them had said that word yet. They said it 2 weeks later on Valentine's Day. Zach had planned to do something elaborate, but the restaurant was absolutely slammed with reservations, and Katherine insisted on being there to support him even though he'd tried to convince her to stay home. "I want to be here," she'd said. "I want to watch you do what you do best." Service was intense. Every table was full, and the kitchen was running at maximum capacity. Zach was in his element, calling out orders, plating dishes, moving with the kind of focused energy that came from doing something you truly loved. He caught glimpses of Katherine at the bar, watching him with soft eyes. When the last ticket finally cleared around 11 p.m., Zach was exhausted and exhilarated. He cleaned up, changed his chef coat, and went out to find Katherine. The dining room had mostly cleared, just a few lingering couples finishing their wine. "Hey," he said, sliding onto the stool next to her. "Sorry for making you wait so long. Don't apologize. That was amazing to watch. You're like a conductor the way you run that kitchen. I had a lot of help." "But thank you." He took her hand. "I know this isn't the fancy Valentine's dinner I promised you. This is perfect," Katherine said. "Being here with you, watching you do what you love. I don't need fancy. Good. Because I need to tell you something, and I'm terrible at fancy speeches." Katherine turned to face him fully, her expression open and a little nervous. "I love you," Zach said simply. "I've loved you since that first night when you came in and I showed you the framed review. Maybe even before that, when I first read your words and felt like someone finally understood. You made me believe in what I was doing, and then you made me believe in us. I love you, Katherine Zimmerman, completely." Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. "I love you too. I've been wanting to say it for weeks, but I was scared it was too soon." "But it's not too soon when it's this real, right? I love you, Zach. I love your passion and your kindness and the way you care about everything you do. I love you." They kissed there at the bar in his restaurant, in the place where their story had started with a review and a framed piece of paper on a kitchen wall. Around them, the staff was breaking down the dining room, but Marcus saw them and quietly told everyone to give them space. That night, Katherine stayed at Zach's place, and for the first time it felt like they were building toward something permanent. They talked about the future in concrete terms, where they wanted to live, whether they wanted kids someday, how they'd navigate their careers without losing each other in the process. "I want everything with you," Zach said in the darkness of his bedroom. "The whole messy, complicated, beautiful life." "Me too," Katherine whispered. "All of it. Spring brought new challenges and opportunities." Katherine's book had a publication date set for the following fall, and she was doing pre-publicity work, which meant interviews and podcasts and building her platform. Ember and Oak continued to thrive, and Zach started getting calls from investors interested in helping him open a second location. "I don't know if I want to expand," he told Katherine one evening. They were at her apartment, cooking together in her tiny kitchen. "I built Ember and Oak to be something specific. I'm scared that opening another restaurant would dilute that." "Then don't do it," Katherine said, stirring the pasta sauce he was teaching her to make. "You don't owe anyone expansion. You built something successful and meaningful. That's enough. The money would be good, though. We could be financially comfortable for the first time." "Are you uncomfortable now?" Zach thought about it. He wasn't wealthy by most standards, despite the inheritance he'd used for the restaurant. Most of his money was tied up in equipment and rent and payroll, but he was happy. He was doing what he loved with people he cared about, and he was in love with an incredible woman. "No," he said, "I'm not uncomfortable. I have everything I need." "Then there's your answer." He turned off the stove and pulled her into his arms. "What would I do without you?" "Probably make mediocre pasta sauce," she teased. "Definitely make mediocre pasta sauce." In May, Katherine asked Zach to move in with her. They were spending every night together anyway, splitting time between his loft and her apartment. It made sense to consolidate. "My lease is up in July," she said. "We could find a place together, something that's ours, not yours or mine." "I'd love that," Zach said, "but fair warning, I come with a lot of kitchen equipment." "I wouldn't expect anything less." They found a 2-bedroom house in the Selwood neighborhood, a small bungalow with hardwood floors and a garden out back. The kitchen needed work, but Zach saw potential immediately. The 2nd bedroom would be Katherine's office, a dedicated space for her writing. Moving in together was chaotic and wonderful. They argued about furniture placement and learned each other's annoying habits. Zach was obsessive about kitchen organization. Katherine left books everywhere, open and face down, driving him crazy. But they also learned how to be domestic together, how to share space and build routines. Zach cooked elaborate breakfasts on his days off. Katherine made the coffee every morning, learning exactly how he liked it. They adopted a rhythm of grocery shopping together on Sunday mornings, wandering the farmer's market and planning meals. Brisket, the cat, adjusted to having more space and a yard to watch through the windows. "This feels like a real life," Katherine said one evening, sitting on their back porch with glasses of wine. "Like we're grown-ups who have their act together." "We absolutely don't have our act together," Zach said, "but we're figuring it out. Together, though. That's the important part." "Together," he agreed. The restaurant celebrated its 1-year anniversary in August. Zach threw a party for the staff and their families, closing the restaurant for a private event. Katherine helped him plan everything, and her parents even drove down from Seattle to attend. Zach's mom flew up from San Diego, and watching her hug Katherine like she was already part of the family made his chest tight with emotion. "She's wonderful," his mom told him in the kitchen. "Don't screw this up." "I'm trying not to," Zach said. "I'm really trying." "You're doing more than trying. You're building a life. I'm proud of you, sweetheart." The party was loud and joyful. Marcus made a toast about believing in crazy dreams and stubborn chefs. Claire from the front of house told embarrassing stories about the early days when they'd had more empty tables than full ones. Pillar presented Zach with a gift from the whole team, a new chef's knife, engraved with the opening date of the restaurant. "You gave all of us a chance," Pillar said, "when a lot of kitchens wouldn't. You built something that matters, and we're grateful to be part of it." Zach couldn't speak around the lump in his throat. He just hugged each member of his team, these people who'd believed in his vision even when it seemed impossible. Later, when the party had wound down and it was just Zach and Katherine cleaning up, she pointed to the framed review still hanging on the kitchen wall. "1 year ago," she said. "I never imagined that review would lead to this." "To what?" "My restaurant surviving a full year." "To us," Katherine said. "To love. To building a life together. When I wrote those words, I was just trying to capture something I'd felt during a meal. I didn't know I was writing the beginning of our story." Zach crossed the kitchen and took her hands. "That review changed my life. Not because it helped the restaurant, although it did, but because it brought you into my world. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, Katherine." "Same," she whispered. "You're my best thing, too." Katherine's book came out in September, and it was everything Zach knew it would be. The reviews were glowing. Food critics and writers praised her compassionate storytelling, the way she elevated small restaurants and the people behind them. Ember Oak was featured prominently, with an entire chapter devoted to Zach's journey from inheritance to opening night. They did a book launch party at the restaurant, and over 100 people showed up. Katherine read from her favorite chapter, the one about a small Italian place in Brooklyn run by a grandmother and her grandson. Her voice was steady and clear, and when she finished, The room erupted in applause. Zach watched from the back of the dining room, his heart full to bursting. This was the woman he loved, sharing her gift with the world. This was his restaurant, the dream that had seemed impossible, filled with people who believed in good food and honest stories. After the reading, after the congratulations and the book signings, Katherine found him in the kitchen. She wrapped her arms around him from behind while he was plating desserts for the lingering guests. "Thank you," she said into his back. "For everything. For believing in me, for letting me write about this place, for being exactly who you are." He turned in her arms and kissed her forehead. "You did this. Your talent, your hard work, I just got to watch you shine." "We make each other better," Katherine said. "That's what I think. We make each other brave enough to do the things that scare us." "You're right," Zach said. "We do." As fall deepened into winter, Zach started thinking seriously about the future. Not the abstract future they'd talked about in the dark, but the concrete future. He wanted to marry Katherine. He wanted to build a whole life with her, with kids and Sunday mornings and growing old together. He talked to Marcus about it while they were doing prep one afternoon. "How do you know when it's the right time to propose?" Marcus looked up from the onions he was dicing. "When you stop being able to imagine your life without her. When you've seen her at her worst and your worst, and you still want to wake up next to her every morning. That's when you know." "I know," Zach said. "I've known for a while. I just want to do it right. Something that means something to both of us." "Then you'll figure it out," Marcus said. "You're good at meaningful gestures. Look at that review on the wall. You've been telling her how you feel since the day you met her." Zach looked at the framed review, those words that had started everything. And then he knew exactly how to propose. He waited until November, almost a year and a half since Katherine had first walked into Ember and Oak. He planned it carefully, enlisting Marcus and Claire to help with the logistics. On a Tuesday night, Zach told Katherine he wanted to cook her a private dinner at the restaurant. Just the two of them after service, like they'd done so many times before. She agreed easily, used to these spontaneous celebrations of nothing and everything. What she didn't know was that Zach had spent the whole day preparing. He'd cooked every dish he'd ever made for her that she'd loved. The duck, of course, the mushroom risotto, a salad with roasted beets and goat cheese that she'd ordered a dozen times. Fresh bread, the kind his grandmother had taught him to make. And for dessert, a chocolate torte that had been on the menu the first night they'd met. He set up a single table in the dining room, right in the middle of the space, with candles and flowers and every beautiful detail he could think of. And on the wall behind the table, temporarily moved from the kitchen, was the framed review. When Katherine arrived at 9 p.m. after service had ended and the staff had quietly slipped away, she stopped in the doorway and stared. "Zach, what is this?" "This is me trying to tell you something," he said, suddenly nervous despite all his planning. "Will you sit?" She sat, still looking confused and a little overwhelmed. Zach brought out course after course, explaining each one. "This was the duck you ordered the first night we met. This is the risotto you ate when you were stressed about the book deal. This salad is from the night we said I love you. I wanted to give you a meal that tells our story." Katherine's eyes were already shining with tears. "Zach, wait," he said gently. "Let me finish. I need to say this while I'm brave enough." He pointed to the framed review on the wall. "That review changed my life. You changed my life. You saw what I was trying to create and you understood it. You made me believe that what I was doing mattered. And then you became the person who matters most. You're my best friend, my partner, my favorite person in the world. You make everything better just by existing in it." He knelt down beside her chair, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Katherine's hands flew to her mouth. I want to spend the rest of my life cooking for you, listening to your stories, supporting your dreams, and building something beautiful together. Katherine Zimmerman, will you marry me? Katherine was full on sobbing now, nodding frantically. Yes. Yes, of course yes. I love you so much. Zach slid the ring onto her finger, a simple platinum band with a single diamond that caught the candlelight. Then he stood and pulled her into his arms, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. I can't believe you did all this, Katherine said against his chest. This is the most romantic thing anyone's ever done for anyone. You deserve romantic, Zach said. You deserve everything. They ate the meal he'd prepared, though neither of them could focus much on the food. They kept reaching across the table to hold hands, to reassure themselves this was real. Katherine kept looking at the ring on her finger, her face glowing with joy. When did you know? She asked. That you wanted to marry me, honestly, probably that first night. I know that sounds crazy, but there was something about you, about the way you understood what I was trying to do. And then I got to know you, the real you, and I knew for certain. You're it for me, Katherine. You're my forever person. You're mine too, she said. From that first review, I think some part of me knew. I just didn't believe it could be that simple. It's not simple, Zach said, but it's real, and that's better. They told their families the next day. Zach's mom cried happy tears over the phone. Katherine's parents drove down from Seattle immediately, insisting on taking them out to celebrate. Marcus and the restaurant team popped champagne during family meal, toasting the happy couple. The engagement period flew by in a blur of happiness and planning. They decided on a small wedding, just close family and friends, at a vineyard outside Portland. The date was set for the following June, giving them enough time to plan but not so long that the anticipation would kill them. Katherine worked on her second book, a memoir about her relationship with food and family. Zach continued running Ember Oak, which had become a Portland institution in just 2 years. The restaurant was featured in national publications, and there was talk of a James Beard nomination, though Zach tried not to think about that too much. What mattered was the life they were building. The small moments, Saturday mornings sleeping in, weeknight dinners at home, walks through the neighborhood with Katherine's hand in his. The big moments too, choosing a wedding venue, tasting cakes, registering for gifts they didn't need but that felt grown up and permanent. In March, 4 months before the wedding, Katherine found out she was pregnant. It was unplanned but not unwelcome. They talked about kids, always in the abstract future, but suddenly the future was now. I'm terrified, Katherine admitted, sitting on the bathroom floor with the positive test in her hands. We're not even married yet. This wasn't the plan. Zach sat down next to her, pulling her close. Plans change. And yeah, the timing is unexpected. But we love each other, we have stable careers, we're building a life together anyway. A baby is just moving up the timeline. You're not scared. I'm absolutely terrified, he admitted, but I'm also excited. We're going to be parents, Katherine. How crazy is that? She started crying again, but they were happy tears this time. We're going to be terrible at this at first. Probably, Zach agreed, but we'll figure it out together. We always do. They told their families at Easter dinner, which they hosted at their house. Zach cooked a feast, and after dessert, Katherine stood up and clinked her glass. We have an announcement, she said, reaching for Zach's hand. We're pregnant. The baby is due in November. The room erupted. Their mothers cried and hugged them. Katherine's dad shook Zach's hand so hard it hurt. Zach's mom started immediately planning baby showers and nursery themes. This is perfect timing, Deanna said. The baby will be a few months old by Christmas, our first grandchild. Same here, Zach's mom said. Oh, this is wonderful. They decided to move the wedding up. Having a very pregnant bride in November seemed less than ideal, so they changed the date to May, just 2 months away. It meant scrambling to adjust reservations and notify guests, but the vineyard was accommodating, and their families rallied to help. The wedding was perfect in all the ways that mattered. The day was sunny and warm, a rare gift in Oregon spring. Katherine wore a simple ivory dress that accommodated her small but growing belly. Zach wore a navy suit and cried the moment he saw her walking down the aisle on her father's arm. They wrote their own vows. Katherine went first, her voice steady and clear. "Zach, I wrote a restaurant review almost 2 years ago and it brought me to you. I talked about passion and intention and how food can be art. What I didn't know then was that I was also describing the man who'd created that food. You do everything with passion and intention. You make art every day in your kitchen and in the way you love. You saw me, really saw me, from the very beginning. You believed in my writing when I didn't believe in myself. You built a life with me that feels like home. I promise to always see you too, to support your dreams, to be your partner in everything. I promise to love you through the chaos and the calm, through restaurants and books, and now a baby. You're my favorite story, Zach Thompson, and I get to tell it for the rest of my life." Zach took a shaky breath, pulling out his own handwritten vows. "Katherine, you walked into my restaurant and changed everything. That review you wrote, those words about passion and memory, they're hanging in my kitchen because they remind me every day why I do what I do. But more than that, they remind me of you. Of the moment our lives intersected and everything made sense. You are the best thing I never knew I was looking for. You're brilliant and kind, and you make me want to be better, do better, create better. You gave me a reason beyond the food, beyond the restaurant. You gave me love. I promise to always hang your words where I can see them, literally and metaphorically. I promise to cook for you and support you and build a life that's worthy of the gift you've given me. I promise to be the partner and father and husband you deserve. I love you completely, Katherine Zimmerman. Soon to be Katherine Thompson, if you'll have my name." "I'll have your name," Katherine whispered, laughing through her tears. They were pronounced husband and wife, and when Zach kissed her, everyone cheered. The reception was at the vineyard, long tables under string lights, food from Ember and Oak that Zach had supervised obsessively. Marcus had insisted on running the restaurant that night so Zach could be fully present at his own wedding. They danced under the stars, Katherine's head on Zach's chest, his hand resting protectively on her belly where their baby grew. "We did it," she said. "We're married." "We're married," Zach repeated, still marveling at it. "And in a few months we're going to be parents. Are you ready?" "Not even a little bit," he admitted. "But I'm ready to try. With you, I'm ready for anything." Their daughter was born on November 12th, a week early and absolutely perfect. They named her Sophie Grace Thompson, and she had Katherine's dark hair and Zach's eyes. Becoming parents was exactly as terrifying and wonderful as they'd anticipated. Zach took 2 weeks off from the restaurant, the longest he'd been away since opening. Marcus ran things flawlessly, proving that Ember and Oak could survive without Zach hovering over every detail. Katherine was an exhausted, emotional mess, but she was also radiant with love for their tiny daughter. "Look what we made," she said one night, both of them awake at 3 a.m. while Sophie slept finally after an hour of crying. "We made a whole person." "The best person," Zach agreed, staring at his daughter in awe. They adjusted to life as a family of 3. The house that had seemed spacious suddenly felt small, filled with baby equipment and diapers and the constant needs of a newborn. Katherine's second book came out that winter, and she did interviews from home with Sophie sleeping in her arms. Zach brought dinner home from the restaurant most nights, too tired to cook after a full shift, but they were happy. Exhausted and overwhelmed and deliriously happy. Sophie's first birthday coincided with Ember and Oak's 3rd anniversary. They threw a combined party at the restaurant, closing for the day to celebrate both milestones. Sophie smashed a cake that Zach had made especially for her, chocolate frosting everywhere. The restaurant team had become family, all of them doting on Sophie like she was their own niece. Katherine found Zach in the kitchen during the party, taking a moment of quiet. The framed review was still on the wall, though it had been joined by other things over the years. Photos of the team, articles about the restaurant, and now a picture of Sophie on her first day home from the hospital. Remember when it was just that review? Katherine asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. I remember, Zach said. 3 years ago, you wrote words that changed my life and I hung them on my wall. You're never going to take it down, are you? Never, he confirmed. That review is part of our story. It's the beginning of everything. Katherine rested her head against his back. I'm glad I wrote it. I'm glad I walked into your restaurant that night. I'm glad you framed it and hung it up like it was something precious. It was precious, Zach said, turning in her arms. You were showing me that what I'd built mattered. And then you became the person who matters most. That review will hang in my kitchen forever, because it's the moment my whole life changed. Mine too, Katherine said softly. They kissed there in the kitchen, surrounded by the life they'd built. A successful restaurant, a beautiful daughter, a love that had started with words on a screen and had grown into something permanent and real. Sophie's laughter echoed from the dining room, where she was being thoroughly spoiled by her grandparents. The restaurant hummed with the voices of people who'd become family. And on the wall, that review hung in its black frame, the words still as true as the day Katherine had written them. Years would pass. The restaurant would continue to thrive, eventually becoming one of Portland's most beloved dining destinations. Katherine would write more books, each one more successful than the last. They'd have another baby, a son they'd name after Zach's grandfather. They'd move to a bigger house, but keep the one small frame with them, moving it from place to place. And through all of it, through the busy years of raising children and building careers and navigating the beautiful chaos of life, that review would remain. Hanging in whatever kitchen Zach worked in, a reminder of the night a stranger had walked into his restaurant and seen him. Really seen him. She had left a review. He had framed it and hung it in his kitchen forever. And somehow, impossibly, wonderfully, that simple act had led to everything else. Love, marriage, family, a life neither of them could have imagined but both of them cherished. The review had been about food and passion and creating memories. But in the end, it became the memory that mattered most. The one that had brought them together and changed everything. And that was a story worth telling, worth living, worth holding on to forever.